All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October 28th NHTSA V3 implementation call. If you are a vendor, please remember to update your name with your product on the participant list, and please mute your phones until you're ready to speak. We appreciate all of your attendance and being here today. Just as a reminder, the meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the NHTSA site for further review if you need to review it later. These meetings are a conversation, so please participate. You're welcome to participate by unmuting your phone or using the chat feature. So moving into the agenda, the first item that we have is the maintenance update with Laurel Baeder.
Thanks, Atim. So I just have a couple of maintenance items to update everyone on. The first and I suppose biggest item is that we are moving our November maintenance window from the 11th and 12th, or from the 10th and 11th to the following week on the 16th through the 20th. And that's because in November, we will be deploying our support for NHTSA V5. So we will be taking that week to update not just our submission system, but all of our reports, as well as the analytical cube to support all of that cool new 3.5 data. We're moving it from its normal place on the second Tuesday and Wednesday that month because much of the NHTSA IT team will be in some important AWS training that week. So we'll send out an email about that as well, just notifying everyone of when the maintenance will be happening. But we wanted to make sure that you heard it here first, that we would be moving that window next month to the 16th through the 20th to deploy 3.5. Does anyone have any questions about next month's maintenance window? All right, so on to my next maintenance topic. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. This is the FAQs page of the NHTSA website where we keep a calendar of our scheduled maintenance. And we are going to be changing our maintenance windows starting in 2021. As you all are aware, we hold maintenance usually on the second Tuesday and Wednesday of each month. And we're going to be moving this to the third Tuesday and Wednesday of each month starting in January 2021. So this calendar will be updated soon with those new dates for the next year, and we'll just be moving ahead. Part of the reason for doing this is that currently the way our maintenance windows are scheduled, they conflict with the implementation calls, which makes it hard to provide accurate and timely notice of what maintenance will entail. And also it can cause issues if on the implementation call we want to demo a system that's currently undergoing maintenance. So we will be moving those to the following week, the third Tuesday and Wednesday, starting in January 2021. And that's all I had. Are there any questions? Awesome. Well, if anyone does think of a question, you're always welcome to send us an email, send me an email directly, and I'll do what I can to find you the answers.
Great, thank you, Laurel. The next item we have is also for you, Laurel, the holiday schedule for compliance testing.
I didn't even see that one. So for everyone who's working on their compliance recertification this year, I think we just wanted to make you all aware that the holiday season is coming, and of course, time in office will be limited in office. We're all working remotely, but there will be limitations on how many appointments we can fit in and how many follow-up appointments that we can schedule for folks who don't complete on the first call. So please make sure that you're planning your compliance testing recertification appropriately, that you have plenty of time to finish before the year ends or before your certification from the prior year expires if you're under the California requirement.
Thank you, Laurel. Next we have Clay with ET3.
Okay, great. Thank you, Atim. Appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining the call this morning. We really appreciate it. We had an exceptionally successful, I think, ET3 testing and onboarding opportunity last week. Lots of folks took advantage of it, and I was incredibly impressed by the vendors' ability to set aside as much as we're all going through right now and make time to stay really attentive to the testing process. And also kudos to the ET3 site as well. They were very timely on getting back with any issues that I think the vendors were facing. I wanted to turn over a little bit of time to John Beckett if he would be willing to talk a little bit about the CMS side of that experience with the testing. John, do you want to share your screen?
Sure. I should be able to see my screen now. And thank you. Yeah, thank you, Clay, for that introduction. Thank you guys for allowing me to present some of the information that we got out of our testing that occurred last week. Just to give some context, the goals that we had set out for this test, and this is our first testing cycle. We're going to have, this is one of 3, but the goals that we set out was to allow for the NMSIS vendors in particular to have some actionable knowledge of requesting security keys and performing data submissions to ET3. There are some other goals that we'll be expanding on for the next cycle, and then final cycle that we will have in December will have its own set of goals as well. We also wanted to make sure the vendors could see the linkages between some of the published ET3 model milestones that we had and how they connect with the IT data milestones. That's a very important thing to make sure that we've got the systems in place to support model and its goals. So going through February of next year, we wanted to make sure those linkages were clear. And then also we wanted to gain some confidence, not only in what we have built on the CMS side, but also give the vendors some ability to have confidence in the mechanics of how these data exchanges are going to occur. So we hope we achieved all 3 of these goals, and it's something that we're soliciting feedback from the vendors and from NMSIS folks, the tax side as well. Moving beyond, we are certainly going to be focused in on the support materials, and much of that has already been developed or is in development, I should say. And just to give some examples, we do have some guidance that we're developing, as well as user documentation. And we also have a webinar that we're going to be posting out on the website sometime in December. We've gotten quite a bit of support, not only from the NMSIS organization, but also from the CMS ET3 team. It is a partnership, and I just want to let everyone know that that's the only way this is going to really be successful, and we appreciate the NMSIS partnership and what they've been able to support us in getting this far. We also have some collaborators outside of ET3, and I'm not going to get into too much detail there, but we have a support system to make sure that this program is kicked off successfully. And I just wanted to let folks know, moving beyond the testing, we've got some things that we're working on, and this is sort of giving you a sense of what the scope of some of that is. Getting into the October testing that we did, we originally planned this test to go from October 15th through the 21st. So we had a schedule that supported it. We have a CMS validation environment that we used. This was not in the production environment. The production environment has the ability to obviously be in place once we go live, but the validation environment mirrors the production environment. So we're able to show the steps as well as the screens, as well as all the other technical details that will be implemented in production. Originally, we had 12 vendors that signed up. We were glad to see that there was some good interest there. And out of those 12, 8 of those vendors successfully requested security keys and submitted test PCR records. CMS also shared some of their test scenarios and data A few of the vendors expressed that because we weren't able to allow for any PII or PHI data to be provided to CMS, some of the vendors asked that we provide them with some of the scenarios and data that we had, and we did do that. So that was shared and I believe posted out on the NHTSA site. In terms of some of the feedback, we did fix about 4 issues that required some updates and changes. Just to give you a sense of one of those, we did have a certificate issue. And that was mainly based on the certificate that was in place on the validation environment. We had to change that out, and we had to do that within a 24-hour period. That was done. It did require the vendors go back and use a different URL in order to send their data transmissions through. But the idea of reacting and then making fixes during the testing cycle, we were very successful in accomplishing that. We also had about 5 requests that came in for changes. As we were walking through the demonstration, the vendors expressed some things that they saw that we immediately recorded, and we are in the process right now of internally working through those requests. So that will be something that I'll be able to report back on at a later date. And in terms of team communication, NHTSA TAC was very instrumental in handling a lot of that, and we appreciate that given the breadth and the scope of what we were trying to accomplish with the vendors. I just wanted to give an overview here just to give folks a sense of how broad of a test that we accomplished here. And this is kind of a simple graphic. This is my cartoon that I actually had a colleague of mine, Neil, who you may have heard on previous calls, helped to put together. And basically going from left to right, you can see where participants and software vendors are able to communicate. That dotted line there would be the CMS enclave. And the box that's in red there are the 3 major steps that they had to work through in order for them to get completely registered as well as capable of submitting transactions. So looking at the green box, there's an enterprise portal that's out there that is online, and the folks had to go to that portal. And as you would any registration process, give information about yourselves and then be able to submit that with some of the responses coming to your email, allowing for you to have a username and a password. The second level is there's a portal out there called the Innovation Center. And this is the portal that we use for all of our CMS models. And in there, you would be able to choose ET3, which would then take you to a platform that allowed for you to do ET3 data exchange. And that data exchange platform, first of all, requires that you have a security key. And so that's the first steps that is required for you to take to request that key. So that, again, just gives you a sense of those 3 steps that were taken as a scope of this test to get lined up so that you can submit transactions. And then this little box down here at the bottom here is the API. And as you can see, it is not something right now that in this particular graphic, the vendors were able to communicate because, or actually use to communicate their transactions because approvals had to be made on the CMS side. So in order for you to use that API, you request the security key and then approval comes through from the CMS side, and then you're capable of using the API. So that API is the application programming interface, and it is used primarily to do data exchange. Just to give a sense of some of the suggestions the vendors had, I just wanted to really go through the list quickly here. There were some concerns over the limited API keys. Right now, we're going to be providing 2 keys per submitter. I call a submitter either a vendor or a participant. And those 2 keys, one is a backup and one is the one that would probably primarily be used to do submissions. Another suggestion came through to separate the IP address process from the API key. A third suggestion it was communicated that there is a 60-day cycle for you to regenerate a new key. So every 60 days, basically you need to go in and regenerate that key. Just to let you know, that was expressed as a burdensome thing to do for the vendors, and we are reacting to that, and likely that will be extended to a much longer period of time. There was also some questions around labels where we were communicating using a label called organization, and it wasn't clear whether organization represented vendors or does it represent agencies. So we're going to clear that up. So sometime in the next test cycle or the final one, we'll see some changes there. A fifth suggestion was the request handle, that it should be the unique ID, transaction ID rather than the text code. Just to let you know, that text code is the standard for NMSIS. So it is something that we try to follow very closely to the way NMSIS specs are looking for us to implement software support for this. So that is something that we want to stick with going forward. And then the sixth one here, the email fields should be auto-populated. This is something that we definitely agree, and we'll be making those changes as well. So that just kind of gives you a sense of the depth that we got to in terms of our tests. Just to let you know, in November, it's the week of the 9th through the 13th, we will be doing another round of tests. Most likely that test cycle period will be extended. We're trying to allow for a lot more testing that can be done by the vendors beyond the period that we have scheduled it for. In terms of the scope for that one, we're going to try and use some registration screens. What we did in this particular October test is we staged the user IDs and passwords. So those were given to the vendors, allowing for them to go in and do their request for security keys. This time around, we're going to ask them to register. So that's a scope that we didn't do in October, we will do in November. In terms of security key access for the new folks that are coming in, they will also have to request security keys. For the folks that were in the October test, you don't no longer have to do that. So you don't have to worry about requesting any keys because those keys that you have will be good to use going forward. In terms of the date that we're going to start this, we'll probably have we'll have a hour to 2 hour meeting that will allow for us to provide the new entrants the information they need to get started. And we're also going to work directly with the TAC folks for any coordination activity. Okay, so I'm going to pause there and thank you again for allowing us to present this information and working with you on our testing.
All right, thank you, John. Really appreciate that. Any questions for John from the vendors? It looks like we have a question from Virginia, John. Will ET3 selected participants need to upgrade their EPCR platform? Virginia, if you could expand on your question, that may be helpful. I don't think so.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Really, thank you for allowing me to attend this meeting. I'm an ET3 program manager for Medcare EMS in Hidalgo County, Texas. And we are looking at new EPCR platforms, thinking for just our reporting. And this is the first I've heard, or any of us have heard, that the data will be automatically transferred from the vendors to the ET3 team. Is that true?
Yes, that is true.
Okay, because the CAD systems in the EPCR platforms are two different systems in for most ambulance companies. So integration is this is what we're all trying to sort out right now.
Yeah, Virginia,
that's the purpose of the question. Can you recommend one EPCR or a number that we should be looking at that already has the ability to integrate CAD and EPCR information and be able to supply it to you?
Yeah, Virginia, that's a great question. How about if we could we take that conversation offline? I'd be happy to talk to you about that. I think that's a great question. So feel free to contact me. I would really welcome the opportunity to discuss that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Jeremy Laird also had a question from TraumaSoft. Question may be already answered previously. Does an agency need to submit to both the state and the ET3 for these calls, or is ET3 forwarding to the state? One of the diagrams made it seem like the latter.
Yeah, sure. We actually discussed this on one of the previous calls. In terms of being very clear and definitive about this, ET3 is not forwarding anything to the states. Today, you're forwarding things to the states as your primary target for the PCR data. That will continue. This does not change that. But in addition to the state transmission, you're going to do an ET3 transmission. And so there's two transmissions, if you will, that you will need to take. And the difference between the two, there is a schematron that there's a special ET3 schematron that you would need to implement in your software, such that you would do your XSD validation in addition to the national schematron validation, and then a third level validation for ET3. So that schematron is published and it's out on the NHTSA site. So hopefully I answered that.
Yeah, thank you, John. One question I might have, John, just some of the software vendors that participated in the onboarding and the data submission process last week, they may have also learned some important things from connecting with you folks and may want to make some modifications and then maybe try to submit again during the November window. Would that be okay if they wanted to, even if they join the October, could they join the November window as well for submissions?
Yeah, that's a good question. That is definitely something we would encourage, actually. We're wanting to make sure that the vendors are, comfortable with the software and what the software needs to do to make these transmissions. So you can actually be assured that if you participate in October, you can do the November test cycle as well as one that we're going to have in December. So you can do all three. And again, the whole goal here is to make sure you're comfortable and the software is performing as it should.
Right. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
John? All right. As November is quickly approaching, folks, if you're a vendor who would welcome the opportunity to participate in the November window for onboarding and testing with ET3, if you would list your interest in participating in that schedule, would you please indicate that via chat? And then we'll begin to build that list and make sure that we provide that to the ET3 site so that they can make the necessary preparations for those folks that will be joining. So again, if you're interested in joining the testing for the November 9th through 13th time period, indicate that in the chat now, and then we'll put that list together. And again, as John mentioned, if you went through the testing and the onboarding in October, but would like to continue that process, continue to feel comfortable with what you're building, please feel free to join again. Indicate that you'll join again. The process, I think, is fairly easy and straightforward. So I would certainly admonish you to join and be part of that group and make some progress regardless of where you are in your internal process. So yeah, thank you. Looks like we're beginning to have some folks indicate through the chat. Thank you. All right, Atim, I'll turn it over to you if you want if you'd be so kind as to perhaps indicate the web location where we have moved the ET3 related information.
Yes, let me go ahead and switch my screen. Okay, so as Clay has mentioned, we have moved the ET3 information. So from the NHTSA website, you'll go to the Using EMS Data. Here at the bottom is the CMS ET3 project. And from here, you'll be able to see all of the ET3 related information. So information about the model, the support materials, as well as the custom elements, state data set, and documentation. So all of that now lives on its own ET3 page on the NHTSA website.
Yeah, thank you, Atim. And if you could hold on this page for just a minute, I'll just quickly point out that we posted the ET3 participation agreement. And so for those folks who have not seen this document in the past, it's the new participate agreement that has gone out to the agencies and to the larger collaborations that are participating in the ET3 model evaluation. So it has some pieces that are particularly related to that agreement, but there is great information in there in regards to ET3 definitions. If you have any questions about how the model will work in certain circumstances, certain types of EMS calls, there's some great descriptions of the ET3 interventions, under what circumstances will they apply and under what circumstances will they not. So that could be an incredibly valuable document to review. I'll also mention we had our ET3 NHTSA data strategy group meet on Monday. This is the group that was very instrumental in the beginning of developing how NHTSA would collaborate with ET3 this past spring. They met and talked about the importance of developing some type of a data flow document, if you will, that would describe exactly how ET3 expects certain NHTSA values to be completed based on the ET3 intervention. So we've really heard that message loud and clear, and we're beginning to work on that. So we're hoping in the next few weeks we'll be able to add that piece to this location on the website as well. The last point I'll just mention, John mentioned that the ET3 group has made some test cases available, and that is in fact true. We have those test cases here in the NHTSA stack. We haven't posted them on the website yet. I think they could probably go in the Git repository. We'll think about doing that. But for those who have signed up, we will be sure and send you the test cases well in advance of the next testing site, so that you can have an opportunity to review those. So if you sign up, you'll receive an email with those test cases at a minimum, and then we'll look to get them loaded in the Git repository. So any questions about the ET3 model, the next testing window, or any other questions you may have? All right. Well, thank you. Okay, it looks like I have the next item, so I'll go ahead and just keep the podium here. So we have I wanted to make sure that we mentioned something that's happening with the NTDB, the National Trauma Data Bank, that's maintained by the American College of Surgeons. We bring it up on this call because a lot of the vendors and also a lot of the data managers in states not only deal with EMS data, but they also deal with trauma data at some level, either at linkage or in its collection. So wanted to mention a recent decision that is now rolling out for 2021 with the NTDB, the National Trauma Data Bank data collection. in some, they have removed the EMS-related data from the required NTDB data collection. So the elements that have been there for a very long time are no longer there. There were some justifications for those decisions that we're continuing to have some conversations about. One was related to the upcoming availability of the NEMSIS UUID in version 3.5.0, and other was related to some calls from trauma registrars within hospitals to reduce the burden in regards to data collection. Regardless of kind of the justification of those things, we just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Many states mandate collection of the NTDB elements and may not request other elements be collected under state rule or under state mandate. And so therefore it's probably important that you understand that those elements are currently missing that have been there in the past. Any questions about that at all? Okay, all right. I have the next item too. I'll just cover it very quickly here. Wanted to just initiate a very informal discussion about what has been requested of vendors by their customers, or maybe even EMS data managers if stakeholders within their states have asked any questions about the ability for the NEMSIS data collection system to collect information regarding upcoming immunization practices and policies and programs. Nothing formal, but just wanted to get a feel from the stakeholders and from the EMS environment out there. Are there calls to provide elements that would be related to the immunization of the public for COVID-19 or for the flu? All right, interesting. One more call. Anybody have received any requests for data collection related to immunizations?
Clay, this is Josh. So I think what you're asking is like if agencies in the near future might be involved in administering either the seasonal flu vaccine or a new COVID vaccine to members of the public. And if so, then would the data systems and specifically the NEMSIS standards support a way for EMS to record those vaccination activities? Is that right?
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification, Josh. That's right.
Okay.
This is Anne in Arizona. I don't think I've gotten, I know I haven't gotten a request from anybody, but I think I know I've heard a little talk about EMS administering vaccines. I have no idea if it's going to go anywhere in our state, but certainly if EMS does administer vaccines, we would want an opportunity for them to be able to document that because it is something they're doing on the call, like kind of stating the obvious, but.
No, thank you, Anne. That's helpful. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you for bringing that up.
So Clay, this is Andrew from ESO. A question to Anne. Anne, do you see this happening as something that occurs during a regular EMS call, or do you see this as something that's going to be in a clinic, a drive-through type clinic or something like that?
I don't know, and I haven't read closely our state's vaccine plan. I think they did, the department did submit something, as I think most states did. I have heard actually from a nurse at a hospital that the COVID vaccine, at least depending on what it is an RNA vaccine, the protocols for requiring temperature control probably wouldn't be something that would lead to EMS administering it. But I really don't know, and it takes a while to prepare things, of course, in our system and in our data system. And by the time we find out there's a need, it's a little bit too late sometimes to actually get on top of it. With administration of any kind of vaccine, when we're talking flu vaccines and things like that, I don't even think our scope of practice covers that, but we do have a way now to quickly change our scope of practice in our state. So it did get me thinking about it, but it really depends on if the vaccine's in a form that EMS could really keep it temperature controlled and within protocol to administer it. And I don't think we have that answer yet.
Clay, I asked because I'm wondering what the use case is here. Is it I'm a paramedic. I come to your house for whatever it is, and I say, hey, by the way, I'm here. Would you like your COVID-19 vaccine? Or I'm here. Would you like your flu vaccine? We have to document that somehow in the. In
our state, Annie, I'm sorry, I guess I didn't answer the question. We do have, the regular way everyone kind of use EMS showing up for 911 calls or whatever, but we also have a treat and refer program, which is a little bit like an ET3 already existing in our state, where people go out and they meet the needs of the patient that doesn't require transport, not necessarily after they've just been in the hospital, but, in lieu of a 911 situation. And I could see that potentially leading to a vaccination if it's required or if it's allowed within the scope of practice.
Hey guys, this is Tony from ESO as well. There is a SNOMED code for the influenza vaccine, so I'd imagine that there would be one issued for this vaccine. So wouldn't it fall under a medication issued or a medication administered?
There is already a SNOMED code for coronavirus vaccination as a procedure.
Hi, Clay. This is Kelly from Image Trend. I kind of looked through some of our recent requests, and it does look like we have had a state actually do some requests that we expand on some custom values for upcoming vaccinations and like mass vaccination efforts. So I can send you those details on some of those requests if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, Kelly. Yeah, thank you. Just to kind of keep on top of this, and Andrew brings up some good points too, right? I mean, we still don't understand a lot of about the actual vaccine or actually how it will be rolled out nationally. So there's lots of questions left, and that might be valuable, Kelly, just for us to keep on top of it. And so if we need to react quickly in some way, we can do that. So yeah, thank you.
Hi, Clay. This is Nick over at Image Trend as well. Just thinking about the use cases for documenting vaccinations in an EPCR setting, I still think we're going to maybe run into some challenges around national standards as they seem to more apply to, the 911 or the interfacility versus more of like a standby type of go out as a public service to maybe a parking lot where they're doing a drive-through clinic. It may be challenging to meet some of the national standards if they're just gathering some names, dates of birth, throwing the vaccine in, and people are on their way. So having some sort of, national standard as far as if that's the direction we're headed, guidance on which fields and which values could be used in this situation might be helpful, especially for providers and agencies that may get tasked with doing so.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Really good thought. Yeah, thank you, Brittany. And the chat. Yeah, please.
This is Josh again. Aside from EMS administering vaccines, we should probably also put it on the radar to consider the immunization history of both EMS providers and patients. So currently, they'd have to pick an immunization history value of other, I guess, because we don't have coronavirus as one of the options.
Yeah, good point, Josh. Thank you. Any other comments? All right, fantastic. Thank you. And please, this is incredibly helpful for us to just begin to think about some of the ideas here about what could potentially be done or how we might respond. This is incredibly helpful. And as we move forward, I think this will again be a moving target. So if you receive any information that you'd like to pass along to the TAC to make sure that we discuss on future calls, please feel free to do that. We'll aggregate that information and make sure that we provide it. So thank you for that. All right, super. I think I think I have the next item as well, just because Julianne is on in our EMT call, I think, and so she was tasked, and I'll share my screen here. She was tasked with just showing you where the new subject matter expert groups that will be associated with the NHTSA TAC, where you can find information regarding those boards. On the NHTSA website, if you go to calls and trainings, there's a new section called advisory boards. Here you'll be able to find a brief statement about the purposes for both the internal advisory board as well as the external advisory board. And we will be posting meeting minutes here, members of these boards, and so that all that information is quite transparent. And then as topics solidify out of these boards, we'll be bringing those to either the DMC call or onto the V3 implementation call here for further discussion. So we'll keep you very involved in that. So any questions about the advisory boards? All right, sounds good. Josh, I'll turn it over to you to talk about the latest performance measure that's been developed.
Okay, great. Give me a chance here to switch over the screen sharing. Okay. All right, so we have another update to the performance measures web service and dashboard, and that is the new measure, Pediatrics 02. So let me get there. So I'm going to the View Reports menu and then Public Reports, clicking on version 3 dashboards.
Josh, we don't see your screen.
Well, let's try it again. Stop and restart. I think I picked the wrong screen. Is that better?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. And just a second here. Okay, I think we're set. All right, so from the View Reports, Public Reports link, going to the version 3 dashboards, where I'm going to bring up the performance measure dashboard, which is the top one on the page there. So the new measure that we've added to this dashboard is Pediatrics 02, Administration of Beta Agonist for Pediatric Asthma. There's a link at the top here to the companion document that contains the documentation for all of the measures. So if I go ahead and bring up that one, this describes the dashboard, but there's a page called Performance Measures that lists each of the performance measures and their definition. So if I go down to Pediatrics 02, then we'll see the full definition from NHTSA for the Pediatrics 02 performance measure. So this is looking at pediatric patients in a 911 call who had asthma. And then it's looking out of those patients, how many of them received one of these beta agonist medications. And so as we look at the data, it's actually very interesting. This is the one measure that seems to have been impacted significantly by COVID-19. So consistently, you know, around 50% of pediatric patients are getting a beta agonist if they have an asthma impression. And then we see as we get into March and April of 2020, the results go down by quite a bit. And then they climb back up until we get to the second wave in July and dipped again a little bit and then start to resume the climb back out. So this has been a very interesting one from that perspective. Couple other things I'll note here. One is you'll see this measure in the dashboard. It's also visible in the web service. However, we are getting an error in actually getting the data for this measure. So in the next couple of days, I'm sure we'll get that resolved so you can actually get the data for this measure through the web service. I also wanted to mention that Trauma-01, for the past, probably year or so, it was missing data from 2020 and even part of 2019. As of today, that data has been restored, and so trauma-01 is now up to date through October. And the third thing I want to mention is that the performance measures dashboard we noticed was getting pretty sluggish as we added new measures over the past year and a half. And as you went to switch from one measure to another, there was quite a lag. So we have done just a small tweak to the dashboard that addressed that responsiveness issue, and now we see things switching very quickly as you move from measure to measure or apply various filters on the dashboard. So big improvement in responsiveness there. That's it for the performance measures dashboard. Any questions or comments? Okay, thanks, Clay. I guess I'll send it back to you, or Atim.
Yeah, I can take it from here. Thanks, Josh, for that update. Next, we have Kevin with the COVID resource reporting tool dashboard.
Thank you, Atim. This is something we introduced last time, but we didn't have quite enough time to, I think, really do it justice. So I've asked that we have a little bit more time today to talk about some new features on this dashboard. The first thing and most important thing I want to mention is that we are rolling out a special restricted access to this dashboard. So this is a copy of an email that will be going out to the DMC list later today. The purpose of the email is to let everyone know that we have enabled the ability for one additional designated individual in each state to be able to access this dashboard and only this dashboard. The purpose of that is to provide the ability for someone, for example, in a state emergency management office, to be able to access the contents of this dashboard for their state without being granted access to all the other restricted dashboards that the NMSIS Technical Assistance Center offers. So in order to obtain that access, what you would need to do is send a message to Monet, and she will begin the process to validate that request and grant it. And it'll take us roughly 5 to 7 business days to obtain that access and get it integrated into the system. If you're curious about how that really is truly going to operate, please ask a question in chat, and we'll be happy to answer that. Now, the next thing I want to go through is what we kind of breezed through the last time we were on this call, and that was the form itself and some functionality in the dashboard. So for those of you who aren't aware, we do have this resource reporting tool form on our website that enables EMS agencies to report their level of stress in relationship to the current pandemic and across several different dimensions of resources that they have available to them. So we're looking at personnel impact, as well as multiple types of PPE impact as well, whether or not the agency has the personnel that they need in order to service their communities, as well as the equipment that they need to service their communities. This form, we would like to see this form filled out at least once a week by each EMS agency, although there's certainly no requirement from the NMSIS TAC to do so. I know some states are requiring or strongly encouraging the utilization of this form, but just realize that mandate is coming from a state level. We do, out of that form, we do produce this dashboard that you see on the screen. And before I go any deeper, I do want to mention that the data that you're seeing is all test data. It's not something, we're not here exposing any individual state's data. So these are all fake EMS agencies that you're seeing. This is the dashboard. It displays that information. So if you as state data manager, this is the dashboard that you would see. And again, if you offer this access to a designated individual within your state, then this is exactly what they would see. Many of you are familiar with this dashboard already, so I won't go too into depth into what it offers, other than the fact that we do now have 2 additional views. There was a request that we not only show visualizations or summaries of the data, but we actually give states access to the responses to all the questions. And so we've added these additional views or tabs onto the dashboard that will allow you to see in detail all the responses that were collected for this dashboard for your state. Now, that's great that we offer that view, but of course the next questions are, well, how do I get this information? How do I download it? And also possibly, how do I get it sent to me on a regular basis? So let me show you those 2 capabilities. So within all of our dashboards, we have this little download button that is, it's either going to be at the top or the bottom of the dashboard. Usually it's at, just so you're aware, it's usually at the bottom. My view here is a little bit different, and so it displays up at the top here. But it is the same button and it functions exactly the same. So when you click that, you're given a list of options of how you want to download the data. An image, if you want, is best. Image or PowerPoint or PDF are best if you want to, present that data or pass it along. Crosstab is if you really want to download and say download the data and load it into Excel, for example, or slice it up in some way. That's going to be the best option for you. And you can do that for each of the views that are available. Now, the other thing that I mentioned, and it's a really cool functionality within Tableau, and it is this subscribe ability. And that will enable you to have this dashboard delivered to you in email on a regular basis. So for example, if I wanted to subscribe myself, I can do that right here. I can just type in my name, or I could have clicked that little subscribe me link and it would have done the same thing. From there, I have 2 options. I can include just this view, and to be clear, that's what the view is whatever I'm seeing on the screen at the moment that I click that subscribe button. So if I only wanted to get the COVID exposure data, that's what I would be subscribing to. I think if you want to get all of the information, though, what you're going to want to choose is this entire workbook option. Now, the subscription options available to you are not as comprehensive as the download. For example, that crosstab ability is not available here. You only have image or PDF or image and PDF. So if you want that real raw data, you really do have to download it. But if you do subscribe and you get this delivered in your email and you see something interesting in terms of the data that comes through, you can just click on the image or the attachment in your email, and you will automatically be directed to log in and view the live dashboard. So if you do see something that you do want to download, you can go through that email to get that download. If you want to, you can change the subject, maybe add a little message as well to yourself, and then you can schedule the frequency of which you receive this dashboard in email. Now, this dashboard only updates twice a week. It updates on Tuesdays early Tuesday mornings and early Thursday mornings. So you could subscribe to it on Mondays, but it doesn't really do you any good. It's not going to give you the most up-to-date information. Really, you really want to choose for this dashboard in particular. You really want to choose this email weekly, Tuesday, Thursday, 8 a.m. Mountain Time subscription. That's really going to make sure that you get this dashboard when it has new information available to you. And of course, to finish off the subscription, you just click the subscribe button and away you go. Finally, before I answer questions, I want to make sure everyone knows, of course, how to actually get to this dashboard. So let me back out of this where I am right now and go to the NHTSA homepage. Again, if for your agencies, there's the resource tool is right there on the homepage. But for you as a state data manager, in order to get to that report that we were just seeing, you need to go to View Reports, then State Reports. And this is a version 3 dashboard, so click on that. And then you're going to want to go down to the bottom, and that's going to get you access to that dashboard. As well as there's a user manager manual available, which covers details of the dashboard, and as well as a training video as well. All right, I think that's all I had, but I see we have at least one questions. Oh, great. Yes, Steve from MacroLogic. Are there any plans to allow for auto-population of the agency's info? At this time, no, there is not, but we've had some requests for that, Steve. So let me take your idea and we'll talk about it more internally and see if there's a way that we can provide that capability. It's definitely, we recognize that agencies having to put their vital information in every time they fill out this form isn't the greatest experience. So we are actively working on some way, if possible, to provide that capability. Thank you. All right, Atim, I don't see any other questions, so I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. Let me pull up the agenda and see where we are at. All right, thank you, Kevin, for that information and explanation. Next, we have just a reminder for the public training that we have coming up next Tuesday on the StateDataSet. So this is training for the Collect Data software developers. So this will be valuable information for those specific developers, but of course, anyone who is interested in the topic is invited to attend as well. And we have just sent out that information in the Google group. So please check that out if you plan to participate. Our next item after that is the holiday schedule for V3 calls. Clay, do you have any insight into this one?
Yeah, happy to take this one. Thank you, Atim. Julianne's on another call, so we excuse her just for the moment. So you'll see we have upcoming meetings listed there below on November 11th, the 25th of November, December 9th, and December 23rd. Folks will probably recall in years past, we've really only held one V3 implementation call in November and December because of the holidays that fall at the end of those 2 months. The Office of EMS has asked us to go ahead and hold these calls, mostly because the go live date for ET3 is immediately starts with the calendar year of 2021. So there was some concern that there may be a need for us to pass on information particular to that project, and just with the pandemic and the kind of variability associated with that topic as well. They wanted us to keep a full schedule for both months. What we'll do in regards to those additional meetings, and I'm going to call them additional because we in the past have canceled them, on November 25th and December 23rd. Those will be incredibly short calls. We will ensure that there's no trainings that are going on. We're only going to be, we'll only be covering that information that's actually vital for the vendors or state directors to understand. So we apologize in advance for the inconvenience, but we'll do our best to make these calls 10 minutes, 20 minutes, just and perhaps they'll just be touch points. If everything falls into place and there isn't important things to touch base on, then we just ask that you call in, and then we'll quickly end the call if there's nothing to discuss. So any questions regarding the upcoming meetings? All right, thank you. And Atim, I don't think Eric is here either. He's also, I think, on the NREMT call. They're holding a summit on looking to harmonize licensing and certification elements across several formats. Leigh asked a good question. If you miss this call, will it count against your participation attendance? That's a very good question. I think that these meetings are just to be counted as regular, right? So it would, if you missed it, count against participation. But I'll clarify that for sure, Leah, for the November 11th call. And that's also Veterans Day. Thanks, Ann. You're right about that. Yeah, so we'll work through that. I apologize. Of course, the holiday season is just always tough, and we want to be as accommodating as possible, but there is some concern to make sure that we pass on vital information. Let me work on this, Ann and Leah, and we'll be sure to post any changes to the Google group and also to the DMC listserv. Thank you both. Any other questions? All right, as I mentioned, I think Eric is on that other call. Is there anyone else from the Office of EMS at NHTSA on the call? Okay. All right, Atim, I'll turn it over to you for open forum.
Okay, great. Next is our open forum. So does anyone have any additional questions or topics that they want to discuss? All right. Well, just a reminder, as Clay mentioned, our next meeting will be November 11th. And just a reminder that the implementation calls are held on the 2nd and the 4th Wednesday of each month. Thank you everyone for being here today and for participating in the implementation call. We appreciate and value all of your insights and feedback, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.